Hello, everybody. A post-lunch session. Right. Okay. So I have not got any PowerPoint, so I'm not. I mean, the quality of the crowd is so good. I truly feel humbled. So I have not much to offer you guys in terms of any kind of advice or thoughts. Or all I'm planning to do is share some anecdotes. Anecdotes from the 8 years that I spent building a profitable, as I call it, venture. So just before we start, I would like to understand a little bit about you guys. Unfortunately, I am not from, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, but I'm not from BIT Mesra. So I would like to understand a little bit about the audience. How many of us are entrepreneurs themselves already? Okay. Out of that, how many of our startups basically pay for your house bills? I mean, they pay you. Salary is a strong word to use in a startup context, but at least it pays bills in your at your home. All right, cool. And how many of us are aspiring entrepreneurs? Okay, so a relative minority. But any which way, the thought process that I'm sharing today is much more relevant to aspiring entrepreneurs rather than the entrepreneurs themselves. I would love to learn some more from the existing entrepreneurs to know how to run business. Anyway, as I said, not much. What I'm going to talk about is 4 simple anecdotes. When I was thinking about a topic for this particular conversation, all I remembered was my own college batchmates. 5 of my college batchmates called me in last month alone with a different kind of marketplace idea, saying, Lalit, I need your help in terms of fleshing out the idea. What it told me was that there is this frenzy of startups in India. You read Times of India every day. It talks about some or other startup getting funded by some or other amount of money. So in that kind of environment, my thoughts are primarily going to be more sobering thoughts. I'm trying to bring in balance in terms of saying, if you want to be an entrepreneur, it's a great thing, but at least you should know what it involves or what I went through. It may not be the same experience that you have, but at least you should be prepared in terms of the time that you give. Right? So my first anecdote is going to be about the startup journey itself. Right? So after 8 years in corporate, in 2006 is when I met some like-minded people. About 4 of us. We drank beer basically for 6 months, almost every night, dreaming about our startup. Finally, we put up enough courage and said, okay, we'll quit our jobs and start. The idea was that first 6 months, our product idea is so kick-ass that in 6 months, some VC is going to fund us, and then we are going to build this large billion-dollar enterprise in 3 years. And if 6 months nothing happens, then we'll go back to our corporate jobs. That was basic, simple philosophy we had. So we started working on this product. The product was fairly okay. We got some paying customers. 2 years went. The product itself, the product itself went bankrupt. We had to close that. We had to move on from that. The first VC money I raised was after 6 years as a startup founder. And the time it took me to be a profitable company was about 8 years, right? So my simple, humbling thought to generally for everybody is that if you are prepared to be in this game for 10 years, only then think about being a startup entrepreneur. I mean, of course, you guys being more intelligent than me might do things faster than I did, but it doesn't harm for you to be prepared. So just be prepared for 10 years. It's a long-term game. It's not a 6 months. It's not a 1 year. It's not a 3 years game, right? Second anecdote I'm going to talk to you about is actually about innovation itself, innovation or invention, right? As a school kid, I wanted to be a scientist. I mean, I thought, all these, I think, we had this Rakesh Sharma going on moon, and I said, or rather going in space, and I said, what, I want to be a scientist. I want to invent something. 8 years in corporate basically killed that instinct to a large extent. But that was one of the reasons why I was so frustrated with a corporate job. And I said, what, if I start my own startup, then I can innovate and I can invent whatever I want. So my first product was a cross-platform, hybrid, responsive mobile application platform. It was the first in the world, much before even smartphones were invented, right? So we basically like to say that we invented hybrid programming, as we call it today, right? But as I told you, the product failed miserably. Failed in terms of we ran out of cash. I mean, that is the end of the product or the end of the company. We ran out of cash. And that involved so much amount of effort. I can't even describe. I think in three years, almost 3 years, I didn't sleep. I mean, hardly ever slept. So what did that teach me? That basically taught me that actually being a startup founder has nothing to do with invention or innovation for that matter. As a founder CEO, my job is to ensure there is enough cash flow in the company. That's number one, right? Position my product correctly, or position the product that I'm trying to sell correctly, sell the product, and essentially hire good people who can do the innovation and invention that I'm aspiring to do. That's about it. So if invention is your thing or innovation is your thing, then it's much, much better to be a startup employee rather than a startup founder. So if something you like to really work on some really kick-ass technology, then better join a startup, and you will have the space and the time and the money to essentially do that. But if once you become a startup founder, it's much, much about business rather than technology or invention or anything else in general. So if you want to be startup entrepreneur, that's the one piece of advice that I have. Third anecdote I'm going to talk to you about is scale itself, or the lack of it, right? I'm sure the people among you who have been startup entrepreneurs or have created a product idea would have talked to some or other VCs. VCs will typically tell you, the product needs to scale. It needs to be $1 billion idea. It needs to be at least $100 million idea for it to scale. I'll tell you one story about me. So in 2010, we created a mobile application, which used to, from the camera of the mobile application, it would tell you your pulse rate, it would tell you oxygen saturation in your blood, right? This was used by an NGO for diagnosing pneumonia in rural Bihar amongst children, especially because children, you cannot put the pulse oximeter, which is the normal medical device they use. So they said, okay, mobile phone camera, if I can do that, I will do that. We thought about making that into a large product. But then we said, what, it will take 3 years of intense research. The only business model there is grant. It's very difficult to see anybody would invest in it. There are regulatory problems, there are clinical trials, lot of mess. We said it's not a scalable idea. We will not work harder on it. As I came to know later, this particular app basically helped us reduce the death rate among infants in Bihar in general. And this was statistically proven by the NGO that I was working with. And that was sort of a recollection, saying that if you really want to make difference in a person, so imagine the kind of difference we made in those children's lives, right? So if you really want to touch a consumer's life or touch a customer's life, Samir is also another example for me to say that, how do you touch consumer's life, right? And he will talk about it possibly when he talks to you about it. But when you want to touch a consumer's life, you don't need to think about ideas which scale, right? You can do what you love to do. You can actually still make difference in end customer's life and in consumer's life. That could be a large distance. So sometimes what I would say is that rather than making a small difference in 1,000,000 people, make large difference in 10 people. That's much more important than anything else, right? Now my last anecdote, and I'm really going to be short, right? I thought it would. Anyway, I can't speak for 20 minutes. 20 minutes already was longer period. So I said, okay, I'll just stop with 4 stories, and then you guys, if you have any questions, ask me around, and then we will call it a day. So last story is actually going to be about death, right? Last anecdote rather. It's a very small story. So in 2011 May, as I said, I'm a hobby cyclist. So in 2011 May, I was cycling. I was going for a cycling trip, and I got hit by a truck, right? It involved 3 operations over a period of 1 year to get me patched up, and I still have a minor disability in my right hand because of that particular experience, right? And that particular part, what it told me, very simple thing. That changed my perspective about life, startup, entrepreneurship, all of that stuff, right? So things become, you realize how to prioritize your stuff. What it taught me was very simple things, right? I look up in the, look up in the mirror and say, okay, you know what, Lalit, what if you get hit by a truck tomorrow? And it's no more just a saying for me, right? I actually got hit by a truck. So what if you get hit by a truck? 2 things it allows me to do very easily. One, it allows me to delegate. I learned to delegate. Before that, I was a workaholic. I would do everything. I would try and control, micromanage everything in my company. But I learned to delegate. Because I said, if I'm not around, there has to be somebody else who should be able to take care of the things. Because I wasn't around for 6 months or a year, Second part it taught me was to actually prioritize my own things in terms of saying, what do I love to do? What is that I want to do? Bizome was launched in 2012. That product idea was something we were keeping on back burner for a while. We said, okay, nothing doing, don't worry about anything else. This is what we love to do. We want to do this. And obviously today, Bizome is a leading enterprise mobility solution. We are, as I say, we are profitable. We raised VC money in the meanwhile. All of good things came from there. So just having that particular thought in your mind that you may get hit by a truck tomorrow allows you to prioritize things much easier and much faster, right? I appreciate you guys being very patient with me. Awesome crowd, as I said. I hope some of these anecdotes helped you guys to essentially apply in your own life. And if you have any questions, please go ahead. And I have left some of my business cards there, so if you guys want to connect with me, just pick it up. This was not going to be about me, so I didn't really spend so much time about introduction and some other thing. Any other questions if you guys? Otherwise, I will proceed. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.